bread. 12 warriors fought for the Apache girl's hand. But she pointed at the cowboy alone. Luke rode slowly along the dusty trail, the warm sun casting long shadows across the rolling hills. His horse, a sturdy brown stallion named Thunder, snorted softly, kicking up small clouds of dust with every step. Luke had traveled many miles, leaving behind the small town where he had grown up, Bert. The world beyond his home was vast and unpredictable, but he felt a strange pull guiding him forward. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for. Perhaps work, perhaps adventure, or perhaps a place where he could belong. As he reached a bend in the trail, Luke saw a small village nestled in the valley below. Smoke curled gently from the chimneys, and he could hear the faint sounds of voices, laughter, and the rhythmic thud of drums echoing in the distance. He had never been to a place like this before. The village was surrounded by rugged hills and scattered trees, and it seemed almost hidden from the world, as if it had been waiting for someone like him to find it. Desperate curiosity and caution mixed in his chest as he guided Thunder down the path. Luke had heard stories of Apache villages from travelers he had met along the way. Narration. They spoke of bravery, skill, and honor of people who lived close to the land and followed traditions older than any town he had ever known. Luke was respectful of such stories. He knew he was an outsider, a stranger, stepping into a world that had its own rules, its own ways of living. Yet he felt a quiet determination to be accepted, to show that he could live and work among them with respect and honesty. As he approached the village, he noticed children running barefoot across the open ground, their laughter filling the air like music. Women were carrying water from a nearby stream, balancing large clay pots on their heads with practiced ease. Some of the men were tending to horses while others sharpened tools or repaired wooden structures. Everything felt alive and connected. Every movement, every sound seemed to belong to the rhythm of the village. Luke dismounted and let Thunder graze near the edge of the village. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and took a deep breath, trying to steady the mixture of excitement and nervousness in his chest. He wasn't sure how the villagers would receive him. In some towns, strangers were welcomed openly. In others, they were watched with suspicion. He had learned long ago that respect was the key. He had to show humility, patience, and kindness, and maybe, just maybe, they would see him as more than just a wandering cowboy. A young boy spotted him first. His wide eyes were curious, and he stopped mid-step, staring at the stranger. Luke smiled and tipped his hat in greeting. The boy hesitated, then ran off, calling to someone, his voice carrying across the village. Moments later, a group of villagers approached, their expressions cautious but not hostile. They were dressed in traditional clothing, adorned with patterns and colors that spoke of their heritage. Luke noticed their eyes, sharp, observant, assessing everything he did. "Hello," Luke said, raising his hands slightly to show he meant no harm. "My name is Luke. I'm looking for work and a place to stay." An elder stepped forward, a man with silver-streaked hair and a steady gaze. He studied Luke silently for a long moment, and then nodded once. "You are far from home," he said in a calm voice. "We will see if your actions match your words." Luke felt a wave of relief. Words were one thing, but he knew that in this village respect was earned through deeds.
He followed the elder through the village, noticing the simple beauty of life here.
People moved with purpose. Yet there was a calmness, a connection to the land that Luke had never experienced before. He admired the way the villagers worked together, helping one another without complaint or hesitation. Among the people, one figure caught his attention immediately. A young Apache girl, her long dark hair flowing in the breeze, her eyes bright and full of life. She moved with confidence, carrying a basket of herbs, and yet there was a gentleness in her every movement. Bo.
But there was something in the way she held herself, a mix of independence and kindness, that made her stand apart. He did not know her name yet, but he felt a strange sense that their paths were meant to cross.
Inspiration. The elder guided Luke to a small shelter at the edge of the village, where he would stay while he worked.
You will help with the animals, the fields, and anything else that is needed, the elder explained.
Your strength and your heart will be tested. If you prove yourself, you will earn your place among us. Luke nodded, feeling both challenged and honored. He understood that acceptance would not come easily. It would not be enough to work hard. He would have to show respect for the land, for the people, and for the traditions that had shaped their lives for generations. Over the next few days, Luke settled into village life. He learned the names of the people, the rhythms of the day, and the small but meaningful ways they lived in harmony with nature. He rose with the sun, helping to tend the horses, repair fences, and gather firewood. He ate meals with the villagers, sharing stories and listening to theirs. And all the while he kept stealing glances at the young girl, whose name he finally learned was Naeli. She often worked quietly nearby, sometimes speaking softly to him, sometimes observing from a distance, her expression thoughtful and calm. Luke noticed that the village was preparing for something important. There was a sense of excitement in the air, a quiet anticipation that everyone shared. He asked a friend about it one evening as they worked side by side. There is a ceremony coming, the man explained. Naeli's hand will be offered to a suitor. 12 warriors from the village will compete to win her favor. Luke felt a pang of anxiety. He had not come here seeking romance or rivalry, yet he could not deny a spark of curiosity. What kind of challenges would these warriors face? How would Naeli decide whom she would choose? He realized that somehow he had become a silent observer in a story much larger than himself, a story of courage, respect, and the human heart. As the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Luke sat near the stream that ran alongside the village. He let the sound of the water calm his thoughts. He knew that the days ahead would be full of tests, both for him and for the warriors who would compete. But he also knew that he could not change who he was. All he could do was remain true to himself, and hope that honesty and kindness would speak louder than boastful strength or flashy skill. Naeli appeared quietly beside him, holding a small bundle of herbs. She smiled faintly, as if sensing his thoughts, and said nothing at first. Luke nodded respectfully. She then spoke, her voice soft but clear. "You are not from here," she said. "But you do not treat this place as a stranger." That is rare.
I want to learn, he replied.
And I want to do what is right. For a long moment they sat in silence, watching the sun dip below the hills. The air was filled with the sounds of the village settling in for the night, laughter, conversation, and the gentle creaking of wooden structures. Luke felt a quiet hope that perhaps he had found a place where he could belong. Not through force or pride, but through patience, respect, and the willingness to be part of something greater than himself. As night fell, lanterns glowed softly throughout the village. Luke lay on a simple bed of blankets in the shelter, listening to the distant calls of animals and the soft rustle of leaves. Thoughts of the coming challenges danced in his mind, but they were not frightening. Instead, he felt ready to prove himself, not to others, but to the values he held in his heart, ready to show that even a stranger could earn trust, respect, and maybe, just maybe, the favor of someone as remarkable as Naeli.
And somewhere in the shadows, unseen by Luke,
12 warriors sharpened their arrows and tested their strength, unaware that the quiet cowboy had already begun making his mark in the village, not through loud displays of power, but through humility, courage, and an unwavering respect for those around him. The night stretched on, full of possibility. Luke's journey had only just begun, but already he felt the stirrings of something extraordinary. A story of bravery, choice, and the quiet power of a man who dared to be himself, and a world full of expectation. The next morning, the village stirred with excitement. Birds called from the trees, and the sun painted the valley in bright gold and soft orange. Brr. Today was the day the elders would announce the start of the challenge for Nayeli's hand. Luke felt a mixture of curiosity and nervousness as he walked through the village. Children ran past him, laughing and pointing at him as if he were already part of some great story. He smiled politely, trying to appear calm even as his heart beat a little faster. The village square was soon filled with villagers, young and old alike. Families gathered, sitting on blankets or leaning against wooden posts, eager to witness the ceremony. Luke noticed the 12 warriors already present. They stood tall, their faces stern and confident, each of them showing off their physical strength and skill. Some twirled their weapons or practiced with bows, while others boasted to one another in low voices. Luke counted them carefully, realizing that each man seemed determined to win Nayeli's favor, though their pride made them appear almost arrogant. Nayeli stood in the center of the square, holding herself with quiet dignity. Her hair caught the sunlight, and her dark eyes scanned the crowd as if measuring the hearts of those who had come to compete for her. Luke could see why she was admired by everyone. She did not need to speak loudly or make grand gestures. Her presence alone commanded respect. Luke felt a strange mixture of awe and nervousness. Desperation. He knew that winning her respect, if that was even possible, would take more than skill. It would take patience, courage, and honesty. The elder who had first welcomed Luke to the village stepped forward to speak. Today begins the challenge for Nayeli's hand, he announced in a steady, calm voice. 12 warriors will test their strength, skill, and courage. But remember, it is not strength alone that wins the heart of another. Wisdom, honor, and kindness are what truly matter. Breath. The crowd murmured in agreement. Some of the warriors shifted uneasily under the weight of the elder's words, while others smiled confidently, believing they already had the advantage.
Luke, standing quietly to the side, nodded to himself. He knew he would not rely on arrogance or speed.
Instead, he would observe, learn, and act with care, as he always had. The first challenge was announced, a horse race across the hills surrounding the village. The path was narrow and treacherous, winding around rocks and trees and ending at the far edge of the valley. Luke watched as the warriors prepared, their horses pawing at the ground and stamping in impatience. Some whispered strategies to each other, while others simply flexed their muscles and stared at Nayeli, trying to catch her attention. When the race began, the warriors shot forward like arrows. Dust rose in clouds behind them, and the sound of pounding hooves echoed through the valley. Luke held back at first, letting the men show their skill. He observed carefully. Some were reckless, taking dangerous turns too quickly, while others tried to outpace the rest with brute strength. Luke's mind worked calmly, noting the safest paths, the hidden rocks, and the places where a horse could stumble. When it was his turn, he guided Thunder with careful precision. He didn't rush. He focused on the rhythm of the horse, the feel of the earth beneath Thunder's hooves, and the safest path forward. Slowly but steadily, he moved past warriors who had taken risky turns and stumbled. By the end of the race, Luke was not the fastest, but he had finished without a single mistake. Nayeli's eyes followed him the entire way, her expression thoughtful, as if she recognized a quiet strength that the others had overlooked. Next came the archery contest. 12 targets were set at various distances, each more challenging than the last. The warriors lined up, drawing arrows and letting them fly with practiced skill. Many hit their marks, but some missed entirely, distracted by the cheers of the crowd or by their own confidence. Luke stepped forward when it was his turn. He took a deep breath, feeling the wind and the sun on his face. He focused on the targets, one at a time, drawing each arrow with care. His shots were steady and precise, and he hit each target cleanly. The crowd murmured in surprise. It was clear that Luke, the quiet cowboy, had skill beyond what anyone had expected.
After the archery, the final challenge of the day was a test of endurance and survival.
The warriors were led into the nearby canyon, where they had to navigate rocky terrain, cross streams, and gather specific herbs and plants under a strict time limit. Some warriors dashed ahead recklessly, slipping on rocks or getting stuck in the mud.
Others tried to help each other, but pride often got in the way. Luke moved carefully, taking his time to understand the land and observe its hidden dangers.
He helped a young warrior who had tripped, guiding him to safe ground, earning a nod of respect. By the end of the challenge, Luke had gathered the required items efficiently and without harm, showing both skill and consideration. Throughout the day, Naeli watched quietly from a distance. She had seen many men boast about their strength and skill, but she noticed Luke's quiet approach, his careful attention to both the tasks and the people around him. She began to feel a sense of respect for him, recognizing that his calm and steady nature might be far more valuable than the loud displays of the other warriors.
As the sun began to set, the villagers gathered once more in the square.
The elder stepped forward again. "Today has shown much," he said. "Strength is important. Skill is important, but true character cannot be ignored. Tomorrow, the final test will reveal who possesses not only courage, but wisdom and heart." Luke felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. He had survived the first day, not by rushing or boasting, but by remaining true to himself. He knew the challenges ahead would be even more difficult, but he felt ready to face them with patience and courage. That night, as the village settled under the stars, Luke walked to the edge of the stream. The water reflected the moonlight, and he could hear the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. Naeli appeared beside him, holding a small basket of food.
She offered it to him with a gentle smile. "You performed well today," she said softly.
You did not seek attention, but you did not hide from the challenges either. That is rare. Luke felt warmth in his chest. "Thank you," he replied. "I want to do what is right."
I want to show respect, not only to you, but to everyone here. Naeli nodded, her eyes thoughtful.
"Tomorrow will be the most important day. Watch carefully, Luke. Some things cannot be measured by speed or strength alone." Luke understood. The next day would test not only skill but character. He felt a quiet determination. No matter what happened, he would act with honesty, courage, and respect. Meanwhile, the 12 warriors prepared themselves for the final test. Some practiced their techniques obsessively while others tried to intimidate each other with words or gestures. Jealousy and pride ran high, but Luke remained apart, observing silently. He knew that actions would speak louder than words, and he trusted that his quiet strength would reveal itself when the moment came. As night fell, the village glowed under the soft light of lanterns. Children slept peacefully, and adults whispered stories of past heroes and legendary deeds. Luke lay on his simple bed, listening to the sounds of the night. He thought of the challenges ahead and of Naeli's watchful eyes.
He knew that winning respect was not about force or pride, but about showing kindness, courage, and humility when it mattered most. Bration. In the shadows, the 12 warriors sharpened their tools and discussed strategy, unaware that the quiet cowboy had already begun to make his mark. Luke had no need for boasting or tricks. Barristing. He had earned a small but significant place in the hearts of those around him, including Naeli, whose quiet admiration for him was growing with every passing moment.
The moon climbed higher, bathing the village in silver light.
Bert. Luke felt a strange sense of peace, knowing that tomorrow would bring the real tests. He would face them with courage, not just for himself, but for the village and for the young woman whose respect he had quietly earned. And somewhere in the distance, the hills and the winds seemed to whisper a promise that bravery, patience, and a good heart could change the course of a story, even when 12 men sought what only one could truly deserve. The morning sun rose slowly over the valley, casting a warm golden light across the village. Birds sang in the trees, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh grass. Luke stepped outside, taking a deep breath. Today would be the day when the real trials began. Tests not just of strength or skill, but of wisdom, patience, and character. Brave. He knew that the challenges would separate those who were proud and reckless from those who were thoughtful and brave. The villagers gathered in the square, as they had the day before. Bration and anticipation hung in the air like a tangible thread. The 12 warriors stood ready, their faces showing a mixture of determination and arrogance. Some of them whispered to each other, comparing weapons and skills, while others tried to appear calm, hiding their nerves behind confident smiles. Luke watched quietly from the side, letting the warriors reveal themselves through their actions. He understood that pride often blinded people, and he needed only to stay focused and true to himself. Naeli stood in the center, calm and composed as always. Her dark eyes scanned each warrior carefully, measuring not just their strength, but their patience, respect, and judgment. Luke noticed that she looked at him differently today, curiously, thoughtfully, as if she were aware that he would approach the trials in a way unlike the others. There was no hint of mockery or doubt in her gaze, only a quiet recognition. The first challenge was announced, a test of endurance and agility. The warriors were to climb the rugged cliffs on the edge of the village, retrieve a small flag placed at the very top, and return safely. The path was narrow, jagged, and steep, with loose rocks that could easily send a climber tumbling. Many of the warriors rushed forward without caution, eager to prove themselves. Some leaped from rock to rock, their hands slipping on rough surfaces, their faces strained with effort. Others argued with one another about the best route, losing precious time. Luke approached slowly, carefully examining the cliff. He guided Thunder to a safe place below, knowing that the horse could not make the climb. He studied each handhold, each footstep, and every loose rock. Then, with steady determination, he began to climb. He did not rush, nor did he try to show off. He focused only on each step, each movement, ensuring his safety and efficiency. By the time he reached the top, some of the warriors were struggling, exhausted from their reckless pace. Luke retrieved the flag and descended with equal care, earning respectful nods from those who had watched him closely. Naeli's eyes lit up with quiet approval. Next came the test of archery under pressure. 12 targets were set at different distances, but this time there was an added challenge. The targets moved unpredictably, requiring not just accuracy, but patience, timing, and focus. The warriors prepared their bows, their faces tense with determination. Some tried to shoot as quickly as possible, while others hesitated, overthinking each shot.
Luke stepped forward when it was his turn. He breathed deeply, feeling the rhythm of the wind and the sway of the targets.
Each arrow he released flew straight and true, hitting its mark with calm precision. The crowd murmured in surprise and admiration, seeing the quiet cowboy succeed where others struggled with frustration. The final challenge of the day was the most demanding, a test of survival and wisdom. The warriors were led into the canyon and tasked with building a small shelter, finding clean water, and gathering edible plants, all within a limited time. Many rushed ahead, trying to complete the tasks as fast as possible, cutting plants without care, building shelters that would not last, and ignoring signs of danger. Luke observed carefully. He selected a safe area for his shelter, gathered only what was needed, and worked efficiently but patiently. When he encountered a tricky spot while collecting water, he did not panic. He thought through the problem and found a safe solution.
Partway through the challenge, a young warrior slipped near the stream, twisting his ankle and crying out in pain. Several warriors ignored him, worried only about finishing first.
Luke acted immediately, rushing to help. He steadied the young man, carried him to a safe spot, and used his knowledge to treat the injury as best as he could. The other warriors watched silently, some ashamed, some impressed. Nayeli, who had come to observe the trials, saw the act of kindness and courage. She realized that while many men could boast about strength, few could demonstrate wisdom and compassion when it truly mattered. By the time the sun began to set, the trials were complete. The 12 warriors returned to the village, some exhausted, others frustrated by their own mistakes. Luke returned quietly, guiding Thunder back to the stable and resting for a moment near the stream. He did not boast, nor did he seek recognition. Instead, he reflected on the day, knowing he had acted with honesty, skill, and respect. Nayeli approached him, holding a small bundle of herbs she had gathered.
You do not act like the others, she said softly.
You do not rush, you do not boast, yet you succeed where many fail. That is rare and valuable.
Luke smiled faintly, feeling warmth in his chest.
I try to do what is right, he replied.
Breaths. I respect the land, the people, and the rules of your village. That is more important to me than winning for the sake of pride.
Nayeli nodded thoughtfully.
Tomorrow will be the final challenge. Courage will be tested, and true character will be revealed. Watch carefully, Luke. Some things cannot be measured by speed or skill alone.
That night, the village glowed under the light of lanterns. Families gathered around small fires, sharing food and stories. Children slept peacefully, dreaming of the events of the day. Luke lay on his bed, thinking about the trials and the warriors. He knew that the next day would be critical, not just for him, but for everyone who sought Nayeli's hand.
The 12 warriors, meanwhile, gathered in secret.
Some spoke of strategy, plotting to outshine Luke or discredit him in front of the village. Others reflected on their own mistakes, realizing that their pride had cost them points in the eyes of the elders and Nayeli. One by one, they tried to prepare for the final trial, unaware that Luke's quiet consistency, patience, and courage had already made him a figure to be respected. The final trial would test more than skill. It would test judgment, quick thinking, and the ability to act under pressure.
Luke felt ready.
He did not seek to dominate or impress. He only wanted to act with honor and do what was right when the moment came. The thought of Nayeli's calm, observant eyes gave him strength. He realized that true respect and admiration are earned through deeds, not words, and that courage often speaks most loudly when it is quiet and steady. As the night deepened, Luke walked to the edge of the canyon, gazing at the cliffs and trees illuminated by the moonlight. He thought about the young warrior he had helped earlier, and about the mistakes of the others. Strength alone was not enough. He understood that patience, thoughtfulness, and compassion would matter far more in the end.
In a quiet corner of the village, Naeli watched Luke as he studied the land, his movements calm and deliberate.
Burst. She saw that he did not need to boast or show off. His actions already told the story of his character. Among 12 warriors vying for her hand, it was Luke who had shown courage, wisdom, and heart. The moon rose higher, casting silver light over the village and the canyon beyond. Luke felt a quiet confidence knowing that tomorrow would bring the final test, a moment that could reveal the true measure of every competitor. He did not fear the challenge. He only hoped that his actions would reflect the values he held: respect, kindness, and courage in the face of uncertainty. And somewhere in the shadows, the 12 warriors prepared themselves, unaware that the quiet cowboy who had arrived as a stranger was already becoming the one who could truly stand out. Strength alone might impress the crowd, skill might win admiration, but only courage, wisdom, and a good heart could win the respect and trust of the village, and perhaps the heart of Naeli herself. The night stretched on, filled with possibility. Luke's journey had not yet reached its conclusion, but he knew he had made a strong impression. The trials had revealed much about the warriors, and even more about himself. He had learned that true strength is measured not by speed, not by boasting, but by steady action, courage, and the quiet power of doing what is right. The next morning arrived with a quiet sense of anticipation. The sun rose slowly, spilling warm light over the village and the surrounding hills. Birds chirped energetically, and the scent of wild flowers and fresh grass filled the air. The villagers gathered once again in the square, their eyes filled with curiosity and excitement.
Everyone knew that today would be the final and most important challenge, the moment that could decide who would win Naeli's hand. Luke felt a mixture of determination and calm. He had observed the warriors carefully over the past 2 days, and had seen their pride, their impatience, and their occasional kindness. He had learned the land, the people, and the rhythms of the village.
And through it all, he had quietly earned a small measure of respect, not through loud words or grand gestures, but through steady, careful action. Today, he knew, would test him more than anything else he had faced so far. The elder stepped forward, his voice strong and clear.
Today, the final challenge begins, he announced.
It will test not only your strength and skill, but your courage, your wisdom, and your character. Each of you must act not for pride, but for honor.
Let your actions speak for you. The 12 warriors exchanged glances, some confident, others nervous.
Many had relied on skill and speed to this point, but now they faced something more difficult. Unpredictable trials that would reveal who truly had the heart of a leader and a protector. Luke stood quietly to the side, his hands resting on Thunder's mane. He did not boast, nor did he show any sign of fear. He only focused on the task ahead, trusting that his actions would speak louder than words. The first part of the challenge required the warriors to navigate the canyon once more, but this time with a crucial test, a series of obstacles designed to measure not just physical skill, but judgment and courage. Narrow paths over rocky ledges, rushing streams, and dense thickets awaited them. Some warriors dashed ahead recklessly, determined to prove themselves through speed alone.
They slipped on rocks, got tangled in branches, and sometimes quarreled with one another over the best route. Pride clouded their judgment, and it slowed them more than it helped.
Luke moved deliberately, choosing his path with care. He helped a young boy who had been sent to follow the warriors and had become stuck between rocks. Instead of ignoring him, he steadied the boy and guided him safely across the dangerous terrain. Other warriors grumbled, seeing Luke stop to help, thinking he wasted time. But Luke knew that courage was not only in racing ahead, It was in recognizing when someone needed help and acting without hesitation.
Nayeli, watching from a high ledge above, noticed the quiet determination in his actions.
The next part of the trial tested quick thinking under pressure. A sudden challenge arose. A small fire broke out near the edge of the canyon, sparked by a stray ember. Panic spread among the warriors, many of whom froze, unsure how to act. Some shouted, others argued, while a few tried to extinguish the flames recklessly, causing smoke to billow and the fire to spread slightly.
Luke did not panic. He quickly assessed the situation, grabbed a nearby blanket, and used it to smother the flames, carefully moving from one spot to another.
He guided the warriors away from danger and worked methodically to put out the fire. The young boy he had helped earlier assisted him, following instructions calmly. When the fire was finally under control, the other warriors looked on, some embarrassed by their earlier hesitation, others impressed by Luke's courage and quick thinking. The villagers clapped and cheered quietly from above, and Nayeli's eyes sparkled with admiration. She had seen many men display strength, but few had shown courage combined with wisdom. Luke had not sought glory. He had acted because it was the right thing to do. And in doing so, he had revealed the heart of a true leader, someone who could act decisively in moments of crisis without arrogance or recklessness. The final obstacle of the day involved a test of endurance, skill, and compassion. Each warrior was asked to carry a small bundle of supplies across the canyon to the village, but the path was uneven, filled with loose rocks and hidden dips. Along the way, they would encounter villagers pretending to be in danger, trapped under branches, stuck on ledges, or in need of assistance. The challenge was designed to see who would prioritize safety and wisdom over speed and self-interest. Many of the warriors tried to rush, ignoring the staged dangers in their path. They stumbled, dropped supplies, and sometimes argued with one another about the best route. Luke, however, moved carefully. When he saw a villager struggling, he stopped immediately to help, lifting the branch, guiding the person to safety, and ensuring that both he and the villager remained unharmed. By the time he reached the village, he had helped several villagers along the way, always acting with calm determination. The other warriors arrived later, some exhausted, some frustrated. They had completed the task, but their arrogance and haste had caused mistakes. Luke's quiet bravery and thoughtfulness had set him apart. Nayeli watched, her expression serene but thoughtful. She had seen the 12 men compete, boasting and clashing, yet it was Luke who had acted with courage and heart at every turn. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the village, the elder stepped forward once more. "Today you have all shown skill," he said, "but skill alone does not define a person. Courage, wisdom, and compassion are what make a hero. Let your actions be remembered, and let the heart choose wisely." Luke returned to the edge of the stream to rest, allowing thunder to drink. He reflected on the day's events, thinking about the dangers, the decisions, and the quiet victories. He did not seek praise, yet he felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing he had acted with integrity. Courage was not loud or flashy. It was steady, careful, and kind. Nayeli approached him as he sat by the water, holding a small basket of food. "You have done more than impress me," she said softly. "You have shown that true strength comes from heart and mind, not just arms or speed. That is rare, and it is remarkable." Luke smiled faintly, feeling warmth in his chest. "I only tried to do what was right," he replied. "That is all anyone can do." Nayeli nodded. "Tomorrow the final decision will be made. Many men have sought my hand, but few have shown what truly matters." "You have shown bravery, wisdom, and kindness. Let us see what tomorrow brings."
That night, the village glowed under the light of lanterns. Families gathered around small fires, sharing food and stories.
Brr. The children slept soundly, dreaming of the events of the day, unaware of the quiet heroics that had unfolded. Luke lay on his bed, thinking about the final day ahead. Desperation. He knew that the decision would not be made by strength or skill alone. It would be made by character, by the courage to act rightly when it mattered most. The 12 warriors, meanwhile, prepared in secret. Some reflected on their mistakes, recognizing that their pride had cost them points in the eyes of the elders and Nayeli. Others plotted schemes, hoping to outshine Luke or undermine his reputation. They did not understand that true bravery and character could not be faked, and that acts of kindness and courage often spoke louder than words or flashy displays. Luke watched the moon rise high above the valley, its silver light reflecting in the stream. He felt a quiet confidence, knowing that he had done his best. The trials had revealed much about the other warriors, and even more about himself. Courage was not simply facing danger. It was acting wisely, helping others, and remaining true to one's values under pressure. Nayeli watched him silently from a distance, her eyes reflecting admiration and thoughtful consideration. She knew that in the coming day, when the final choice would be made, it was not the loudest or strongest warrior who would earn her respect. It would be the one who had acted with steady courage, kindness, and honor. And in that moment she realized that Luke had already shown her more than any of the 12 warriors combined.
As the village slept, a sense of anticipation lingered in the air.
The quiet cowboy had arrived as a stranger, but through his actions, he had already begun to earn the trust and respect of the village. The final day would soon come, and with it, the decision that could change the course of many lives. Luke did not fear what was to come. He only hoped that his heart and his deeds would speak as clearly as the actions he had taken over the past days. For somewhere in the shadows, the 12 warriors sharpened their tools and reviewed their plans, unaware that true heroism cannot be imitated or faked. Luke had shown that courage, wisdom, and a good heart could shine brighter than any boast, any display of strength, or any calculated trick. The night stretched on, full of possibility. Luke's journey had not yet reached its conclusion, but he knew that he had already made a difference, not through force, but through quiet, steady, and thoughtful action. And as he drifted into sleep, he felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that when the final moment came, he would be ready to act with courage and honor. No matter what the challenge. The morning air was crisp and calm, the kind of quiet that made every sound stand out, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, and the distant murmur of the village stirring to life. Today was the day the final decision would be made. The villagers gathered in the square, a mix of excitement and anticipation on every face. Children perched on fences, elders leaned on walking sticks, and families whispered to one another, eager to witness the moment that could change the lives of many. The 12 warriors stood in a line, their faces showing a mix of pride, nervousness, and determination. Some straightened their shoulders, trying to appear confident, while others fidgeted, unsure of themselves after the trials of the past days. Each warrior had displayed skill and strength, yet Luke's quiet presence stood apart. He did not boast, nor did he attempt to dominate the attention of the crowd. Instead, he stood calmly beside Thunder, the horse grazing quietly, his hands folded, his eyes steady and thoughtful. Nayeli appeared in the center of the square, her dark hair flowing in the morning breeze, her eyes calm but sharp. She held herself with dignity, knowing the responsibility of this moment rested on her shoulders. The elders had prepared her choice carefully, giving her the freedom to select not based on strength or display, but on the qualities she truly valued. She knew that today would reveal not only who was worthy of her hand, but who possessed courage, kindness, and integrity, qualities that could not be faked or forced. The elder stepped forward, his voice clear and deliberate.
The trials have concluded, he announced. Each warrior has shown skill and determination, but skill alone is not enough. The choice of whom to honor with Naeli's hand rests not with strength, but with heart, wisdom, and courage. Naeli, the decision is yours.
The 12 warriors shifted uneasily. Some exchanged glances, hoping that their strength, speed, or daring acts would be enough to win her favor. Others swallowed nervously, realizing that the tests of the past days had revealed more than just skill. They had revealed character. Luke's calm, steady demeanor had not gone unnoticed. Naeli looked across the line of warriors, her gaze sweeping slowly. She had seen boastful strength and reckless pride. She had seen skill without kindness. She had seen courage, but only when it was loud and showy. And then her eyes rested on Luke. He had arrived as a stranger, an outsider. Yet through every challenge, every trial, he had acted with patience, respect, and courage. He had helped others when they were in danger, had remained steady when others panicked, and had shown skill not to boast, but to complete the task with care and thoughtfulness. His actions spoke louder than any words, louder than any boast or display of strength. The villagers held their breath as Naeli stepped forward. She paused for a moment, letting her eyes meet Luke's. He nodded slightly, a quiet gesture of acknowledgement, neither arrogant nor pleading. She raised her hand, pointing clearly and deliberately. All eyes turned to Luke. The crowd erupted in whispers. The 12 warriors' expression shifted from expectation to shock, then to acceptance. Some bowed their heads respectfully, acknowledging that the choice was fair. Others looked surprised, realizing that the quiet cowboy they had overlooked had won her favor not by strength or pride, but by courage, wisdom, and kindness. Luke felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had not sought this moment, yet he understood its importance. Dest mingles up. He stepped forward, keeping his movements steady and respectful. He bowed slightly to Naeli, then to the elders, acknowledging the honor that had been given to him. His respect for her and the village was genuine, and it shone in his every action. The elder spoke, his voice full of approval.
This choice reflects wisdom and understanding, he said. Courage, kindness, and thoughtfulness are the true measures of a person.
Let all remember that strength without heart is hollow, and that true honor lies in actions, not in words alone.
The villagers cheered, their voices rising in celebration. Children clapped and ran to their parents, excited by the unexpected turn of events. Women smiled, some whispering to each other about the quiet hero who had won Naeli's respect. The 12 warriors, humbled by the day's events and Naeli's choice, nodded respectfully, acknowledging that Luke's actions had earned him this honor.
Naeli approached Luke, her eyes shining with quiet happiness. You did not arrive here seeking recognition, she said softly.
Yet through your deeds, you have shown me courage, patience, and kindness. That is what I value most. Luke smiled faintly.
I only tried to do what was right, he replied. I respect you, the village, and the people here. That is what matters most. Naeli extended her hand.
Luke took it gently, feeling the warmth of her touch and the significance of the moment. The villagers watched, celebrating not only the union, but the values that had guided the choice. Strength, skill, and pride had their place, but they had not won her heart. Only courage, wisdom, and kindness had proven their worth. The celebrations began immediately. Families prepared food, children danced, and the village echoed with laughter and music. Luke, though tired from the trials and the challenges, felt a quiet joy. He had come to the village as a stranger, seeking work and a place to belong, and he had found something far greater: respect, trust, and the admiration of someone remarkable.
Over the following days, Luke worked alongside the villagers, not as a competitor, but as a trusted member of the community. Nayeli and he spent time together, sharing stories, learning from each other, and growing in mutual respect.
The 12 warriors continued their training and duties, now more humble and thoughtful, having learned the value of patience, kindness, and true courage.
Luke realized that the journey had taught him more than he had expected. It was not enough to be strong or skilled.
True strength was measured by how one treated others, how one faced challenges with honesty, and how one acted when the stakes were highest. Nayeli had chosen wisely, not for outward appearances or bravado, but for the qualities that mattered most in life. The village flourished with new energy. Children played freely, inspired by the courage and integrity they had witnessed.
The elders spoke of Luke's deeds not as a story of a stranger, but as a lesson in character, humility, and bravery.
Nayeli, confident in her choice, moved through her days with grace and contentment, knowing she had followed her heart and her wisdom.
Luke and Nayeli worked together side by side, helping the villagers, tending animals, and learning from the land. Their partnership was built not on haste or expectation, but on mutual respect, understanding, and admiration. The quiet cowboy who had arrived as an outsider had become a valued member of the village, proving that true respect and love are earned through action, courage, and a steadfast heart. As the sun set over the valley, painting the sky with hues of orange and gold, Luke and Nayeli stood together at the edge of the village. The wind carried the scent of wildflowers and the promise of new beginnings.
Thunder grazed nearby, calm and steady as ever. Luke looked at Nayeli, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sky and the joy of the day.
Thank you, Nayeli said softly, for being true to yourself and for showing courage, patience, and kindness.
That is why I chose you. Luke smiled. I only tried to do what was right. I did not know what the future held, but I hoped that honesty and respect would guide me.
Together they watched as the village celebrated, the sounds of laughter, music, and cheer filling the valley.
The 12 warriors trained with renewed purpose. The children played freely, and the elders shared stories of courage, honor, and wisdom.
Luke realized that his journey had not ended with Nayeli's choice. It had only begun. The trials had shown him the value of patience, kindness, and steady courage.
He had earned respect through his actions, not through boastful words or reckless displays. And in the quiet moments he understood that true strength is measured not by who is loudest, fastest, or strongest, but by who acts with integrity, compassion, and courage when it matters most. The days turned into weeks, and Luke became a true part of the village. He and Nayeli shared many moments, some quiet, some filled with laughter, but always grounded in respect, understanding, and the lessons learned from the challenges of the past days. The villagers looked on with admiration, knowing that the choice had been made not by chance, but by the wisdom of a young woman who valued courage, kindness, and heart above all else. And so, the story of the quiet cowboy and the brave Apache girl became a tale remembered by the village for generations. It was a story not of boastful strength, but of courage under pressure. Not of reckless skill, but of wisdom and kindness. Not of pride, but of the quiet power of acting rightly when it mattered most. Luke had arrived as a stranger seeking a place to belong. He had stayed with humility, acted with courage, and shown kindness at every turn. Nayeli had chosen wisely, recognizing the heart and character that mattered far more than appearances or skill alone. Together they became an example of respect, bravery, and the enduring power of true character, leaving a legacy that would be remembered in the village long after the celebrations had ended.